I learned from that, okay, you kind of shield the person in the tank seat, like the Matrix, right? The tank seat, like who's actually actioning on what needs to happen. So you kind of keep that person focused on that problem. But you have to report what's going on regularly because management wants to know, you have stakeholders, like they need to know what's going on. If I'm not the primary person actually troubleshooting the thing, I need to be valuable to that person, keep everybody off of them, and make sure that I'm getting timely updates. But we're talking like no nonsense, just engineer talk, complete honesty.
Hello, welcome to Picture Me Coding with Erik Aker and Mike Mull. Greetings, Mike.
Hey there.
How you doing today? Good to see you.
Good to see you. It's a lovely day in Southern California.
Mike, I have a special treat today. I invited a person I worked alongside at Scale, Kyle Risse, to come on the show and hang out with us and share his experience with us. I worked alongside him in Pasadena at Scale, and I really enjoyed hanging out with Kyle there. He's got a lot of experience in networks, infrastructure, Linux server admin, different corporate environments. And I thought he'd be an interesting guest to have on the show. He's got some stories I think he's up for sharing with us. Welcome, Kyle. Thanks for coming on.
Hey, thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Would you mind giving us a little bit of your background, just a little description of what kind of work you've done?
Sure. These days, I run a DevOps team at a healthcare startup. But early in my career, back in the old days, pretty much did Unix administration, ran networks, came up very much through the ops route. I'm very much a big O DevOps person that have done a lot of operations, a lot of change controls, stuff like that we can talk about. But yeah, got into the DevOps realm pretty early as kind of a career shift. And we could talk about how Scale was part of that. And just love working on computers, getting products out, running servers on the internet.
You said Unix. Did you really run Unix? You didn't run Linux in the early days?
Yeah, the first job I had was actually at an ISP help desk.
Mm.
And so everything ran on Solaris.
Oh, wow.
So kind of love Solaris. I remember the first time I used Linux, I thought it was kind of primitive. And a friend of mine actually turned me on to FreeBSD. And so I was actually kind of using FreeBSD. Linux has been around since the beginning of my career. So
you made this distinction before. You said capital O, big O, ops guy. What does that mean when you say that? I don't quite know what that means.
Oh, okay. So, I mean, at least to the way I look at DevOps, right, is, well, first it's a culture, but somehow it's also a job title now. Mm-hmm. But when you look at it, there's kind of two paths that lead to DevOps, right? There's the operations sysadmin, sitting in the NOC, very much what we were doing at Scale, just operating things, making sure things are running and kind of imperatively working on a system. And then there's this kind of concept of, okay, that's a development effort and you're writing code that builds your environment, usually in a declarative language, and you can get into the Terraforms, the Nix, all that good stuff. And a lot of people actually come from the software side where, hey, I was a backend developer. Hey, I was even a UI person, but I was at a startup where all of a sudden I was running AWS. So kind of, DevOps is the conversion of where the big O and the big D people kind of come. That's a terrible thing to say, shoot. But the developer background people come in and, it's an eclectic mix. But for me, it's also very much, when I started my career, those were the shoulders, the giant's shoulders we were standing on, right? Like the Unix admins at my first job. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, no. Like the jack of all trades specialist, if that makes any sense, right? So like there's this concept of, well, if you're a jack of all trades, you can't get deep on certain things. But when I was coming up, the Unix admins, they could knock out a network config. They could administer the box but they could also write better C code than the developers, right? They just chose not to. Like, we want to run the thing and make fun of the C developers and fix their stuff, right? So when I was coming up, those guys were debugging the code and running the network and doing all the good stuff. And then you kind of had this convergence, and I kind of blame Windows for this because it allowed a lot of folks to come into IT operations that didn't necessarily understand even how computers work. Like, Windows is a very huge ecosystem, and IT just blew up from before I was a kid, where you just kind of had this sysadmin role where it was, I just kind of point and click and things. So the DevOps, when DevOps started to come along, it was the reconvergence to me of the old school Unix admins. Because now, we're writing code, but we're building systems as an output, not necessarily writing business logic.
There do seem to be a lot fewer of those wizard types around anymore.
Yeah.
The gray beard types. You know what you're describing, Kyle, reminds me of the Phoenix Project. Whenever I think of the NOC and DevOps, I think of the Phoenix Project. You ever read that book? You probably heard of it, I'm sure.
I love the Phoenix Project, yeah.
Yeah. So that's like, I had never really gone into a NOC, but I pretty much characterized by that description, like software person who was in a startup or a small company, and suddenly I'm running AWS. It's like, oh. But in my case, it's a little bit more like I came back to Linux. Like, I started as a Linux hobbyist 20 years ago, never intending to be a software developer. Can you tell us how you got started in the field? Like, where did you come from, and how'd you end up doing what you're doing now?
So as a kid, I mean, any chance I could get to mess with a computer, I would take. The first computer I really got into and started learning how it worked was an 8088. And then eventually got access to 486 with a modem and learned about BBSs. And it was just, I never looked at it as a career. It was just like, this is what I'm going to do. I mean, even to the point where when I was coming to graduate high school, right? Like, I just was so naive. And it was, my parents had this thing of, well, if you either got to be getting geared up for college or you kind of got to go, right? We're not going to support you.
So you were like, well, if I have to sell drugs, I'm working on computers.
No. I was very much like, well, I think I'll just join the military, right? Like, because I can't hang with school anymore. And so my wife, who you met, she's my girlfriend at the time. She goes, like, working on computers and this stuff you guys do. Because, I mean, she would go to LAN parties. Me and my buddies would run LAN parties and set up full LANs of 20 PCs and start playing Quake and setting up network shares and sharing, a bunch of movies and all that kind of stuff. She's like, that's actually like a real job. So, like, maybe you should look at a trade school or something, right? And I'm glad she did. So ended up kind of going to a trade school, and that's where I actually met some guys that introduced me to Linux. And then I got my first job through a friend. It was that ISP I talked about. It was part of the Press Enterprise, which I don't know, up here in Riverside County, it's the major newspaper for our county. It was big back then. And so they had an internet service provider to do dial-up networking. So a friend of ours from high school, again, my wife ran into him because she was working at a coffee shop. He came in to get coffee, and, hey, Kyle's like, trying to figure out how to get into tech, because I was like waiting tables at the time. And that was at a country club. That was actually pretty good work. But I knew I was going to have to make a shift somehow to actually start working in tech. And I'd kind of been in school for, 6 months, a year or whatever. So I was going to have my associates in 2 years. And at the time, the planned bachelor's was 3. And so she started talking to him, and he said, oh, well, we're hiring people at the help desk over there. So I went over there and interviewed and met the boss.
At an internet service provider.
Yeah.
That's kind of front lines, isn't it? Like, for a networking person, it's like, don't just go and like keep the server running. It's like, go and work at an ISP. That's a pretty backdoor, like, you see the dirty stuff.
You do. It was a lot of fun. But a lot of the job was, because it was help desk, people would call, and it got to the point where, okay, well, I'll just kind of memorize how to get to the dial-up network settings in every version of Windows.
Oh, wow.
So that while I'm talking them into reconfiguring, because a lot of times it was just, hey, you need to set up the dial-up thing, right? I didn't really have to do much.
So for help desk, these are people who are just like average customers. They may not have a clue what they're dealing with. They need help make sure the network works. Is that right?
Yeah,
No,
the
not
majority of
necessarily.
the time, like,
Oh,
hey, I can't get on the internet, and this was the
got it.
era where you had to put in a phone number to
Yeah.
get on the internet.
Yeah.
And the more interesting ones were, something's wrong with my mail, and so it was like, oh, okay. And we had some pseudo commands, but a lot of that time was kind of dead time, either between calls or just doing boring things. But we had access to like tons of computers. We all had multiple computers at our desk because they were like, we want you to be able to try every version of Windows and all that. So we installed Linux, and I was with a great group of folks that the majority of them were all young like me and really obsessed with technology. So I got introduced to all sorts of concepts. Like that's where I learned about Slashdot, which at the time was like the place.
Huge, yeah. That used to be a big deal. Slashdot. Wow, you were taking me back, Kyle. It's '90s LAN parties. Slashdot. Go ahead, Mike.
Could we put a rough year on this?
That was 2001.
Okay.
Yeah, like DSL was all the rage.
So when I started talking to you at Scale, you said to me that one of your first jobs was working in a hospital, and I just immediately thought, well, that sounds really stressful. Like you were doing networking, maybe server admin stuff in a hospital. Is that right?
So it's pretty interesting. So from the help desk ISP, my manager went over and started working at a startup called Swiftcom at the time. But anyways, we did last mile wireless. So he pulled me over there. So that was my first sysadmin job. I was titled a network engineer, but I mean, we did everything, and we built the data center from the ground up. And it's the reason I'm addicted to startups, even to this day, even though that company failed. So I was there for a year, very tumultuous, probably worth its own storyline. But it ended up that I needed another job because this thing was going down. And Monster, take you back again. So I just put a resume up on Monster, and I had no idea that, I just had Linux knowledge, and everyone I talked to had Linux knowledge. It didn't seem that, it just seemed like
massive
regular.
job site at the time, monster.com.
But it ended up getting me an interview at Cedars-Sinai Hospital.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I'm like, at the time I'm 20. So I go down there for this interview, and I meet with the team. They were called the Network Operating System team, and they mostly did like Windows NT and Windows 2000. So no networking. And at the time, my big achievement was I'd gotten a CCNA, and I'd been working 2 years, And
That's
so
a networking cert. Sorry, Cisco.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. So Cisco Certified Network Associates, like the lowest level Cisco cert you can get. So
you
I
had
got
a
that.
networking cert.
I had a networking cert, and I knew Linux. I worked at this startup. So I remember in the interview, my eventual manager, because it was a team of 12, so they were all there, and it was kind of sussing me out. He goes, I could wipe my behind with your CCNA, and he just kind of wrote me off. And at the time, I had no idea what the context of that was. I was just like, oh, this isn't going well. But then they sat me in front of a DL360, and they had this checklist, and they're like, hey, just by the end of your time, it needs to do all these things. So it had like a specific RAID configuration, and it had to be running an array of Linux services.
Wait, so you told me this when I met you. You said something, you started telling me a story. I was like, okay, test me. I want to do this. And you started running through, and I was like, no. Yeah, I could do that. Yeah, I could do that.
Like set up a Samba share, enable NTP, set it as this, set it with this upstream.
You can't Google, like you got to know this stuff off the top of your head.
And I'm in a lab.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
And there's just two people watching me.
And how many steps do you think How many steps do you think it was?
Probably like 13.
Okay. And they wanted you to go through all of them.
All of them. And so what I didn't know at the time, I had no context for, was that 10 people had already taken this. A lot of them, a lot older than me, because I was 20. I think that's why no one took me serious. And they just, couldn't get through it. Like didn't have the practical or whatever it was, but they had Linux on their resume. So that's, I think, why the boss was so just kind of, this is a waste of time. And it was so funny because I did it. They kind of, one guy stayed with me, the manager or the team lead that I would eventually report to, the hardware team lead. He went off. He came back. He goes, okay, takes me to the manager's office, and the tone completely changed. He's like, okay,
really?
The guy who'd kind of written me off.
Did you ace that test? You did 100%. Like you did every single step. Just like, oh yeah, okay, type. Okay, next step, type. Pretty much.
and the funny thing I thought about, and I even kind of talked to him about it later, is all the people I'm coming up with can do all this. us. Like, we just do this for fun. Like, we're killing time at the ISP because you have to work.
RAID arrays and stuff. We just do this for fun.
Yeah, if you give us hardware, we'll play with it, you know?
Yeah, okay, all right.
And I didn't realize, and that Cedars-Sinai was a very wake-up call that that's not what the IT industry is.
Oh.
It's not the experience I was having. Because I was working in startup land with these hardcore guys, and we'd go 12 hours a day building a data center and just obsessed and only talking about OSPF and BGP and, you know, debating the various Linuxes and getting in arguments about VI versus Emac. I thought that was what the entire career was, and I was signing up for 20 years of this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And then I get in there, and it's like, oh, it's meetings and people pretending that they're doing important things, but
compliance.
Or like there was an accounts team. Like your entire job is you get a ticket, and then you manually like add a user, and then what do you do the rest of the day? Okay, I'll stop asking. They told me just stop asking questions, be happy, ride the gravy train, all this. And I tried for a year, but I had to.
So wait, so you worked for Cedars-Sinai then, hospital system, or just one hospital? You were like the whole system, like a bunch of hospitals, or?
Just the one in Hollywood.
Okay.
So what would that be? Beverly Hills.
Yeah, that sounds stressful. Kyle, was that stressful? I mean, I think I mentioned this to you, but like at one of my first jobs, I was doing web dev, and I was like working on this radio player on a web site that we had, and the radio people would call in and be like, I can't get the radio player to work. I would get so stressed out. It's just this like crappy JavaScript thing. I rewrote it completely from the ground. And my boss was like, you need to chill out. Nobody's going to die because the radio won't play. And when you started talking about hospitals, I was like, ooh, the nobody's going to die rule doesn't apply. That sounds intense. I don't know if I want that job.
So, interestingly enough, at Cedars, not really. They specifically had me doing Oracle migration. So the CTO there was very forward-thinking and really hated his Unix team. And so Linux was a way to get all the Oracle databases off to this kind of Windows-ish team that I was on, but really that ran commodity hardware. So he saw a huge opportunity for Linux to displace Unix. He was very forward-thinking on that. Yeah. So I migrated a bunch of Oracle, but in true responsible sense from the CTO's perspective, a lot of it was data warehouse stuff. So most of the systems I worked on were data warehouse. I didn't really do anything clinical there. Now, as I've told you, I kind of flamed out at Cedars because I was just too young, and it wasn't interesting. So I ended up moving up to San Francisco.
Did you feel like kind of like when I first got a job working in an office as a software engineer, I felt like a weirdo. I felt like I don't really belong here. These people, it's like they've been in career for. Did you have that feeling too, or is that you felt you did have that feeling? So
you asked about the stress. The stress of that job was, I'm a fish out of water. I'm a 20-year-old kid. Yeah, these guys all talk like business people. They
probably have families, and they probably have a backyard and plants in it and stuff like that.
They figured out how to buy a house.
Weirdo. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
and I'm like paycheck to paycheck, and I grew up in Menifee, and now I'm living in Hollywood, and it's just total culture shock. Sushi was novel for me. I got good at chopsticks was one of my goals at the time. Just total out of my element, right? Raised by blue collar people, so a lot of the things these people worried about, I just couldn't. That's you too?
Yeah, it was similar. Yeah, I mean, kind of. Yeah, my mom pretty blue collar, but I had the same feeling. Just like I don't belong here, and these people are gonna know I don't belong here, and it was stressful. It was really like I felt like I was living a weird sort of costume. And it bothered me early days.
So so imposter syndrome, right? It's kind of feels like imposter syndrome.
I think so.
Does that ever really go away though?
It muted for me definitely over time as I started. When I got to a job, there had been 2 jobs in my career that I've stayed longer than a year, and in both places I started, including my current one, I built stuff, and then I was around for long enough to see it really, really take off and succeed. And then I built some stuff that didn't work. That always happens, and you just kind of like go, okay, we'll fix that or redesign it or whatever. And the ratio of stuff that worked that didn't work was great enough, and people kept giving me enough feedback that over a longer period of time, I felt like, gee, I guess I really do know what I'm doing.
Yeah,
I think it depends a lot on the individual as well. I mean, in my experience, there's kind of two sorts of people. There are people who never really feel like they are quite there yet. There's another type of person who very confidently says things that they know are not true.
Oh, yeah. That always kind of bothered me too. Yeah.
And they clearly don't have imposter syndrome, but I'm not sure that what they do have is better than that. So.
You wouldn't trade for that.
No.
Yeah. I think that's the Peter principle, right?
Yeah.
So you're saying
that.
It never really went away for you, that feeling, Kyle, or it did eventually, right? I mean, you lead teams. You seem like an incredibly capable guy. And I know hearing that, if you have the feeling, doesn't make it go away.
No. And you see the people I hang out with, right? You have Owen on the tech team, literally wrote the IPv6 spec. Mm-hmm. That's who I learned IPv6 from. Like, I'm an imposter in that world, right?
Okay.
You have Rob, some of these Nix guys. I mean, I love Nix. I can get it to work, but there's just so many people I see that I'm fortunate enough to interact with that are very good at what they do. And I guess I learn from constantly.
If you compare yourself to all these people who have like way more knowledge than you, then you may. I mean, it's good to be around those people, I guess, is the other way I would say it, like, because you are learning from them. But can we go back? You went up to San Francisco and then you went back at some point down to Southern California and started working in hospitals again. Is that right? Do I have the story right?
Yep. So that same boss, I told him, hey, I got to go. I don't fit in here. And at the time, my wife, girlfriend still, but she's going to school in San Francisco, and I was going up there a lot. Mm-hmm. And I ended up doing a side gig with a friend of my uncle's, and we got along really well. And it was to set up a server. Anyways, so the job went well, and he said, hey, if you come up here, I can source enough work, and let's kind of try to build something out of that. So when I told the boss, hey, I got to go to San Francisco, he goes, I can't get in the way of love or whatever, But so he begrudgingly let me go.
Was that the CTO?
Because it was hard.
At Cedars-Sinai?
He was my manager.
Got your manager. Got it.
But the way he plays into this is, so I was in San Francisco for a few years. My wife graduates. We're doing okay. But he calls me up and he says, hey, what kind of future are you building, right? It's like total mentor mode. Mm-hmm. Just kind of, okay, she's graduated, but what's next? And it was kind of like, I don't know. Like, I do
you're
enough.
Probably like mid-20s at this point. What do you mean? What do you mean? What's next?
I make good cash, and it's like 1099 work. I don't really report to anyone, and I'm paying the rent. But in the back of my mind, I knew, like, you got to grow up. And he put it in the perspective of, well, if don't you want to get married and start a family? Don't you want to be down here and have grandkids by your mom's? And I mean, he just ran through the whole thing, like build up a 401k, buy a house, all these things. Like, those are totally achievable. I just got hired at this new hospital at Pomona. I need you to come back and rebuild my network.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, but you didn't care about my networking skills before. And he's like,
yeah, I could wipe my ass with your CCNA. And now suddenly.
Well, and also talk about stressful. So now we're in a situation where I go, I've never actually done that. And he goes, you'll be fine. And so just having someone have that much confidence in you, you don't have in yourself. And the team he was building was a couple other people from Cedars. And then once I got in there, we were able to pull in some more people. But it was totally rewarding experience. So the stress of that job, aside from, having to prove myself and all that, and the actual work, dovetailing back to nobody's going to die if the system breaks. So Pomona is where I heard that, right? And there's a very specific system, and it's pretty interesting. So we had a huge labor and delivery unit called the Women's Center.
Okay.
And
for
so
babies,
Pomona Hospital,
birth and babies. I said
birth and babies.
Got it. Yeah.
And tons of them, right? This was 2007, which was the highest birth rate time for the hospital. Oh. And they had built this women's center. I'm going to get this wrong, but maybe a decade before. And this, Pomona Hospital is like 100 years old. So depending on where you are in the hospital, you might be in a part of the building that was older, newer. But the women's center, I mean, you could be having 30 babies at a time, right? The most critical phase for a baby is during labor. You have to monitor the heart rate. Like, because if the baby's heart stops, like, you need immediate intervention, right? Mm-hmm. And that's the riskiest time, is when the mom's in labor. But there's also staffing concerns, and it's a nonprofit hospital. And how do you afford to have 30 nurses? So by law, if you have a fetal monitoring system in place, which is where there's a centralized dashboard, you can have up to 10 mothers in labor per nurse.
Oh,
Okay.
wow. Okay. Okay. So you
So,
have this technical system in place, and then the law allows you to have fewer nurses, is what you're saying.
right. So you would think this is, like a very sophisticated high end system.
Mm-hmm.
But even as late as 2006, 2007, I mean, up until the time I left in 2013, this was still a 16-bit app created by GE called QS that had been basically progressively migrating versions of Windows. So, like, one of the things we did was move it to Windows 2003. So, talk about networking. And I know you told me, and I heard on the podcast last week, or the last one about scale, where you kind of talked about, I don't know what a switch does, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But okay, so Switch has layer 2 where we can kind of transfer data on one LAN, right? And that's kind of how your house works. Most people's houses work.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's also this concept of VLANing, which is where I can create virtual LANs across groups of switches that basically emulate a physical LAN. So virtualization, think like with compute, we had it on networking kind of baked in from the beginning. So where that ties in is, so when we got there was this whole dedicated bank of switches just for this QS system. That
For
was
the baby fetal monitor system.
for the baby fetal monitors. But one of our charges was we need to get off all this old Nortel and Bay networking equipment, move it all to the Cisco stuff. So for years we replaced the core, replace all these switches in the closets, reconfigure the network.
Wait. Could you just be like, okay, no babies are allowed to be born on Saturday from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. because we're going to replace the switch. You could do that, right?
Not at all. Well, and also from our standpoint, just for cost, right? Like, why can't I use the regular switches for this purpose, right? And the manager of the women's center, who, or at least that ran this system, we got really close over the years. But when I first pitched this idea to her, she was just, no, this needs to work. Otherwise, babies die. This system has a blip. And think about, if the system has a blip because of the law, you not only have the risk of, one of the baby's heartbeats stopping, but because of the law, it's a huge shift for the hospital too, because now they have to move a bunch of nurses over to monitor it until the system's back up, to actually be in every physical room.
Wow.
Because the fetal monitor's not working. You have to be in the room and actually look at the one that's in the room that's hooked to the baby. Mm-hmm. So getting her kind of coached up on like, hey, we can actually run this on a VLAN on top of the network and provide the same reliability. Like you're saying these can't go down. I don't think any switch can go down ever. So we're in agreement.
That's my red line.
Yeah. But you'll laugh because I know you'd asked about WASGit. We'll talk about that. But it has the graphs, the RRD graphs, right? The old school looking MRTG style. That's what the QS system used. And also the way the system communicated was...
So, sorry, people won't know about that yet. But so it's like, it's just like you pinged those services. Is that what you're saying? Like you just make sure they're still alive and reachable?
Just the size of the graph, right? So these things are checking in, once every, whatever it was, 30 seconds.
Okay, so those are the actual fetal monitors themselves being graphed. Got it.
So fetal monitor in the room, if the network goes down, it's connected to the baby and the mom. It's going to work just fine, right? As long as power is on. Mm-hmm. But like whether or not that gets to the nurse station where we're legally obligated to centrally monitor, that's a different question. And the way by which it gets there is it communicates with the server, draws that graph, and then it's on the application at the nurse station, right? But the way the whole system was set to communicate, and where I really started getting disillusioned with medical software, was it just broadcasted. Everything broadcasted all the time. So on networking, you can have a unicast packet where you say, here's my IP, here's the IP of the other side, send it back. Mm-hmm. Or every network has the top address, the all 1-bit address, which on a usual network is .255 for a regular size /24. If I just ping with all ones, everyone's going to see it. it's just gonna, every switch that sees that packet's gonna send it out every port, and it's going in every direction.
So
So it
everybody
also had
hears
this
everything.
all the time, 30 monitoring stations, all broadcasting constantly. It was a great traffic pattern to look at once we could start understanding how this thing worked.
But if you blow it up, again, the babies
The
could
babies
die.
die. Well, and she was very serious about calling me directly, or calling, one of us in the nerd room, the system administrator room, right?
Mm-hmm.
She's very good about calling and saying, "Hey, babies might die." Like, she'd just go straight to 11. Okay,
Wow.
it's time to work.
And so that's one of those jobs too. Like you never, I mean, you probably had a pager at that time.
Oh,
You
yeah.
probably never are not on call.
So we did rotate.
Okay.
So for networking, I was on call every other week.
Hmm.
And then, yeah, for system side, because it was one of the first convergences of like an infrastructure team.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, for that, it was every, 5 weeks.
Kyle, after you were in hospitals, you went on and did more operations, more DevOps, more infrastructure stuff. How did you get into more DevOpsy stuff? What part of your career was that all? Where did that come in?
I went to my first scale.
Oh, okay. What year would that have been?
I was trying to figure that out because I knew you would ask. I think it was 9X or 10X. So
2012, 2013, somewhere in there?
Before, 2010, maybe 2009, somewhere in there.
Mm-hmm.
So the hospital was interesting and stuff, but kind of the dynamics changed over time.
Mm-hmm. It's funny because even like the type of networking infrastructure you're talking about, it even sounds old school to me.
Mm-hmm.
When I started doing more DevOpsy stuff, 2013, 2014, what you're describing sounds like, oh yeah, old Linux, graybeards. And it's only like 5 years before.
Well, and one thing that really made me sad about the hospital is we didn't really have a lot of Linux. And I kind of love Linux, right? And so we found opportunities to use it, but it wasn't the right solution for a lot of the things in that environment.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and I was kind of getting disillusioned. They brought in kind of, the team was shifting at the management level, and it was post recession. And I was having kids and kind of thinking like, well, what's next, right? I can't, like, something inside me can't do this job for 20 years and be a lifer.
Yeah.
And so where do we go? Like, what do we do? And luckily I found the first scale I went to, there was a DevOps day. And I was just like, what are these guys talking about, DevOps? And then I, just the talks and the challenges that some of them were having. Like, I need to multiplex logs from, these high volume systems. And it just made me think like, dude, that's right. Like, I could be back running stuff on the internet again, but how do I get from where I'm at? Like, how do I convince anyone that I need to be back there? I'm running Linux Ubuntu at my house. And I got wine work and I play games on it. But for the most part, my career right now looks like a VMware Cisco admin.
Yeah. A lot of Windows, a lot of point and click.
Even Windows, right? Even Cisco and Windows, right? So everyone thinks that infrastructure as code kind of started with Terraform in the cloud, right? In my early days, there was a book by Kirk Bauer, and it was, because at Cedars I had 40 Linux boxes. So how do I actually manage all these? So a lot of Bash scripts, a lot of Perl, and then in the Cisco world, a lot of even like Telnet on some of these, right? Like, I'll admit.
Okay, all right.
But yeah, a lot of SSH. And so even in the Cisco world, we kind of had this thing, this product called Cisco Works that they would sell you. And it was a centralized management platform. So we actually did version control, switch upgrades. And so DevOps, like, this idea of infrastructure as code across like fleets of Linux boxes wasn't like, it all made sense.
Okay.
It's just like, what are the tools? So I learned from that first scale, like, I need to learn Puppet.
Yeah.
And I did, I just kind of jumped in, and I really wanted to figure out how to get back into working on open source stuff, back to managing like fleets of Linux boxes and putting web servers on the internet and having some of these problems they were talking about on the stage. And that seemed a lot more interesting. So fortunately, I kind of head down. I knew, you've met my kids, but I have 3 kids. But at the time, I think my son was just born. And I think that was a spark too, was once kid number 2 came, it was like, okay, it was that I was having that conversation that my boss, my mentor kind of guy had with me, which was, okay, but what's next, right? Like, how do you now build a life that's interesting? And part of that for me was, I just don't want to come home every day like miserable from,
Yeah.
dealing with politics at the hospital and all this weird stuff.
And you want to work on stuff that interests you, that's challenging, that takes you in a direction you want to go, that keeps you learning.
Exactly. So,
Yeah.
so I kind of head down like, okay, well, our whole thing was, I'll stay at the hospital, I'll do a good job, but like feverishly make myself more marketable. So I went and kind of renewed my Cisco cert. I got some cloud certification from EMC, which seemed interesting at the time. I got all into VMware. And part of that too was they kind of asked me at the hospital to get more involved in VMware because we had some stability issues. And so got a VCP 4, got a VCP 5, and that was enough to kind of stand out to get in the right room.
I don't know what those are.
VMware Certified Professional.
Got it. Okay. All right.
So at the time, it was all the rage if you could kind of get this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was enough to kind of get marketable. Then once my third child came along, me and my wife decided, okay, they're all pretty close in age, and this is kind of the cutoff. And I said, okay, well, it's time to go. Fortunately, I was able to get work at this company called auction.com, which was about to go through a huge shift in management and become like a technology company. And got in as an infrastructure engineer, but I saw the path of like, okay, this is back to startup world. But like, I also have these people I'm responsible for, and not a huge savings account. So the business itself is good. It's real estate. And they sold, it was like distressed, like you'd have a courthouse auction for a property.
Short sales, stuff like that. Yeah,
exactly. They brought that online. And so it was like, okay, this has legs and it lets me get to doing something. Because, you're also leaving a hospital, which is as stable as it gets.
Yeah, very stable. Yeah.
So yeah, managed to get there. Kind of the first thing I did my first week was, hey, there's dozens of servers at that point. I think when I started, maybe 30 or 40 or something.
Mm-hmm. And they did they have their own DC, or was it like, this wasn't cloud? Yeah. Was it cloud?
No.
No cloud. No. Yeah. They had their own data center.
Yeah. So I saw the through line of like, okay, get in here because I have a lot of value. Like I can help with I can run the data center, right? Mm-hmm. Once the boss trusts me and I get the keys to the castle, and that's kind of where I did. But I was also starting to work my way up the application stack of like, okay, hey, I've got this fleet of Linux servers, and this is what I really miss about not going to the office. But I walk around and I talk to everybody. I figure out what kind of work they're doing. I talk to developers, QA.
Oh, like, hey, that guy needs a database. I could deploy that for you. You can get to it over here. That type of stuff.
Yeah, and hey, we've got these PHP libraries, and okay, well, I have Puppet, and guess what installs PHP libraries, right? And also, right. Well, what are you guys doing locally? Oh, well, when you start, you read through this document.
And you type all this crap, and you copy this from here. Yeah. And
okay, well, and this is before containers were really popular. Mm-hmm. And I sure didn't know about really Docker or anything, but okay, hey, I got this thing Vagrant. Let's install VirtualBox on your machine.
Yeah.
Here's Vagrant, and guess what? Vagrant has a hook that automatically runs the Puppet module.
Wow, yeah.
And it's funny because
these things you're describing, it's like I feel like I've walked a lot of the same paths, but not necessarily along in the same footsteps, but it's like, oh yeah, I was there. I remember Vagrant. I had Vagrant and Ansible.
I love Vagrant. I loved it. I mean, now it seems primitive because
it seems pretty old. I didn't love Ansible. Did you ever have any like crazy like fires, outages, war story stuff? Like anything really crazy happened to you, and like where you got a super stressful day at work, everything's on fire, nothing's working?
Yeah, I mean more than I can count. I think. Well, just nature of environments, especially like the hospital, right? It's a 100-year-old building, so one day the generator just dies. Right. And the power goes out. Mm-hmm. The battery backups were like 80 kVA, 40 kVA. So they're enough to run the servers for like 10 minutes. Whoa. But then, by then the generator's supposed to kick in. Right.
Uh-huh.
But this generator's so old, the ATS switch failed. So the power never came, the generator never turned on. The batteries ran out. Now you're down. You're in a code black.
You guys are dark.
Um,
Code black. I don't think I've ever heard that. Should I have heard of that? Mike, should I have heard this term,
oh,
code black?
I've probably seen it on a television show, but
Yeah, what
beyond
is
that,
when do you use that term, Kyle? Is that like a tech term we should know? Two
not at
software
all.
guys? Okay, all
It's a
right.
ve-
What's a
it's a
code black? Sounds cool.
it's the worst one. Well, there's worse ones.
Mm.
So it's a healthcare specific nomenclature, right?
Oh,
And
okay.
what's funny is it's one of those things where if you work at least the hospital I worked at, I don't know about others, but if anyone ever stopped you and asked you what a code was, like what's a code pink? Someone's trying to steal a baby. You know, what's a
Oh,
what's a code
I've
red?
heard
There's a
code
fire
blue
somewhere.
on ER. The code
Code
blue
blue, someone's
crashing.
having a heart attack,
Right,
cardiac event.
right.
Right.
You need the crash cart.
Code black is general emergency, all hands on deck. Like
Wow.
something's gone wrong that we cannot continue operation properly. So all the computers going down generates a code black. I will
But what
say
do you
one
do?
thing.
I mean, what are you going to do in that situation? It's just call up somebody to fix the generator. Just like, yeah, sorry, boss, everything's down. It's not my fault. Can you get me electricity?
it's probably like the pit. What's
I, so
happening?
so my as a side note, Mike, that's a great call out, right? So my wife was watching The Pit the other day,
Hmm.
and she's working her way through an old season, I guess. And there's one where, so I start watching with her, and it's one where the computer system is about to get hacked or something, so they
That's
have to
the
shut
current
it down.
season. That's
Is
the
that
current
okay?
season.
So
Yeah.
I don't, not to ruin the story for your listeners or whatever, but they're essentially dealing with like, hey, the whole thing's going down and we're going back to manual. And
Yeah.
I was like, I'm leaving. Like, I can't watch this.
I'm leaving.
And she totally understood. I'm like, I just no, I'm not
My
going
buddy
to
who's a
do this.
security researcher who works on those, he consults on these problems where the hospitals get hacked. He said that the pit is extremely accurate in how they represent these hacking and going dark scenarios.
So, I mean, not to get too far off on a tangent, but you had asked about like, hey, you can't tell no babies to be born, right? But we
Hmm.
do have to do maintenance in a hospital.
Hmm.
And the most challenging part is dealing with the the OR. So I've had, so stressful incidents, right? We're on that topic. So I've had a switch bank in the ER die, and I'm sitting on my couch playing Tiger Woods golf at 11 p.m. and I just get the call like the entire emergency room's down. Okay,
Oh,
drive
okay.
down there, replace it. Call this infrastructure tech named Gus. Like, hey, I need you. We both get down there. I provision 3 new switches with those personalities. Then we go and we just start plugging things in, right? So
Mhm.
as I'm provisioning the switch, he goes to the thing, starts labeling all the cables, so it's a quick pull out, push back in. Not super stressful. Like hospitals are really good at having contingency plans,
Okay.
especially
Well, you
like
mentioned
we spent
operating room is what you mentioned.
yeah.
Like,
So operating room with the ER. So I need to do maintenance in the operating room. I need to replace the switch, right? You
mm-hmm.
think that's pretty straightforward. But you don't know when someone's going to need an emergency surgery, right? And so, okay, we'll do it at 2 a.m. But literally the change control is, there's a contingency. I need to check in with the ER, right? And I need to guarantee them that this is only going to take, the 20 minutes I've scoped for the swap out.
Oh man.
Because
Okay.
I need to check with them and let them know, like, hey, I want to take out the OR, but you don't know if someone's coming in with a gunshot wound or some kind of thing.
This particular room. Don't put anybody in there, please. I need to do some networking stuff, please.
Yeah, like there's going to be no computer in the operating room, right?
Mhm.
And so, I've had it where, okay, we need to go do this maintenance. We're going to take the OR down 2 a.m. So, 1:50, call the emergency room. Hey, what's it look like? Are we going to be able to start? No. All right, going home. Change canceled. We'll try again next week. Come back the next week. Hey, can we go? Yeah. Go in, do it as quickly as possible. And you really have to have your ducks in a row, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
All the cables labeled is the best part, because if you could just pull them out and push them back in without thinking, especially 2 a.m, right? Your brain doesn't work at 2 a.m.
I'm thinking about this like I'd be terrible at this. This is awful. Like this is stressful to even hear about, Kyle. You're stressing me out.
It's, ops. That's the big O. You asked what the big O ops is, like the background of that, right?
I don't know if you're selling the career that well right now,
Kyle.
Kyle.
Sane people don't do this work. Like,
sane people don't. How do you so you've managed people too, right? How do you keep them from getting stressed out? Like if I'm on your team, I start sweating, getting real stressed, my decision-making ability degrades, right? I start making crappy decisions. How
Oh
do you
yeah.
keep me calm? How do you deal with those situations?
So I learned early on, especially at that hospital, our CIO, he understood that, especially where we'd have an outage where we're in the data center. Like one time we had a switching loop because Dell chassis kind of failed and it caused the whole network to go down. And
Hmm.
you get into the specifics of that, but it's boring. But we're troubleshooting. We don't even know what's going on, so we're just sitting on the floor in the data center, like plugging into stuff, right, and trying.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned from him at that time. He came in and he said, "Look, I'm going to keep everyone that's not essential out of this room." And he goes, have someone by the door communicate through them, but like, because he's the CIO. Everyone wants to know what's going on with the network,
Yeah.
and he doesn't want us distracted. I learned from that okay, you kind of shield the person in the tank seat, like the Matrix, right? The tank seat, like who's actually actioning on what needs to happen. So you kind of keep that person focused on that problem, but you have to report what's going on regularly
Yeah.
because management wants to know. You have stakeholders, like they need to know what's going on. If I'm not the primary person actually troubleshooting the thing, I need to be valuable to that person, keep everybody off of them, and make sure that I'm getting timely updates. But we're talking like no nonsense, just engineer talk, complete honesty. And one of those is as an ops team, and these days the it's all changed. But in those sysadmin roles where we're physically in person all the time, you really have to trust the people you work with. And a lot of that is, we spent all our time together. After work, we'd play poker together. We'd hang out on the weekends and watch football. And
Yeah.
you
Mutual
have to have a
respect,
cohesive
right?
crew. Yeah.
Yeah. Somebody makes a mistake, you don't hold it against them because you respect them in general.
Oh, of course. And you also kind of understand everybody's capabilities. You know what
Hmm.
makes them tick. Really, and you might have seen this at scale, but you trust each other to yell at each other because you're frustrated. But like, it's not personal. It's just, holy cow, something's happening. And we're human.
Yeah.
So, but managing people, yeah, it's luckily the disasters these days are different. There's a lot
Oh, it's
less of
just like
them.
the clouds down, check down detector and wait for it to come back up. It's easy.
Yeah, like and I mean, and this is a mentality that's out in the industry that I can't fix, but it's well, everyone's down because Amazon East wants
Yeah,
it.
S3 broke. Sorry. Just let's
So
not
it's
do any
cool.
business for now. Yeah, it's no worries. It's not my fault.
Like,
Everything I built is rad.
but we have stakeholders, and they're down with something we can't control. And
When Erik and I were working together the last time, no hospital stuff, but we had a sort of financial angle to our business, and we worked with a bank, and so we had to comply with these bank regulations. And so one of the things that we had to do was we had this fairly detailed plan for how do we continue to do business when this happens. And
Mike says we, but he was CTO. He had to write this crap. It was a business continuity plan, and it had like this and fell over. Go ahead, Mike.
yeah, I was just curious, is I would assume that in a hospital there must be just an immense amount of regulation and business continuity stuff that you have to have documented.
yeah, the medical field was very good. I mean, so are you talking about SOC 2, type 2 kind of deal?
Yeah, well, we had to put all that in place before we could go through our audit. But yeah,
Yeah, and the business continuity and disaster recovery planning, definitely. The medical field's very good about, they're already in that mode, I would say, is kind of at least my take, right? They already understand the idea of, hey, there's going to be a traffic incident, which is going to increase the number of people coming to the ER,
Hmm.
or like
Things are
always
going to
something
go
can
wrong.
fail.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so even within medical procedures, at least at the time, and I hope it's still the case, but there's always a paper backup within every department and process. And then globally, we spent a lot of time just like prioritizing systems. Like, okay,
Hmm.
what's the most critical system? And that's an interesting question, but it's the phone system, right?
Oh.
And then what? Well, the network, and then email, and then we spend a lot of time going through that. I don't think a lot of that was imposed on us though. Like HIPAA's more about data privacy.
Hmm.
I think unlike SOC 2, which is I've kind of gone through SOC 2 at multiple places and it's very standardized.
Mm.
Every place treats it different from what I've seen, but medicals seem to be like they're already thinking in those terms. Like things
Mm.
can go bad. So
Hmm.
I don't know if that answers the question, but definitely.
I was just curious because this stuff was imposed on us by, the bank could not function as a bank. They had to be certified as a bank, and they couldn't do that unless they had all this compliance stuff in place. And so I just assumed that in a hospital environment, it's sort of like even more rigorous.
In some ways, yes, and in some ways, no. It's mainly imposed. A lot of it's imposed internally. Now, bear in mind that it's been 13 years since I worked in an actual hospital.
Yeah. Sorry to emphasize the hospital stuff so much. It's just, it's so different than my experience. I think probably for Mike too. I did want to ask about Scale, because you started going to Scale as a visitor, like as I don't know, what do you call it? Conference goer. That's the word I want.
Attendee.
Attendee. That's the word. That's the word you want. Yeah, an attendee, a customer, attendee. And then you decided to volunteer, and you've been volunteering ever since. Can you talk about that a little bit? Like, why did you volunteer, and why do you keep doing it? What draws you back to contribute to that?
Well, let me ask you, what brought you to Scale?
Oh, what's funny is, so I volunteered at Scale this year, and on my last couple of days, I was just looking around at all the work people were doing, and I just kept asking them, "Why are you here? What are you doing?" And I think I was trying to figure out why I was there. Like, the whole reason I volunteered was Rob is a friend of mine. We went to Scale as attendees, Mike and I did last year. Had a great time, fantastic time, but Rob looked stressed last year. You could talk about that if you want to. He looked really stressed. And so I was like, wow, the whole conference is run by volunteers. Rob's my buddy, and I don't know if I can help him. I've done a lot of software stuff in the last 15 years. Does he need that? I have no clue. So I said, Rob, do you want, I could volunteer if that helps you. I don't know if I can help you. And I wouldn't be offended if you told me, no, your skills are useless to me because you don't know networking. And he was pretty much like, yeah, we could use your help. And I was like, okay, I'm going to show up and help my buddy Rob. That was my whole thing. And then I met you, and I was like, I got to help this guy. He's rad too. So my motivation is purely personal. There's no like ideology or like broader noble goal that I have. I'm just like, I like that guy. I'm going to go give him a hand. He looks stressed.
But so Mike, was that also your first Scale? Was the 2024 that would have been? No, 2025. This is.
Yeah, Scale 22 was the first one. I'd never even really heard of the conference, which is odd because, I've been in California for the entire time it's been going on. But yeah, we first heard about it through Rob, and I think our motivation originally was just to sort of experience it and maybe promote our podcast.
I wanted to meet Leslie Lamport, shake his hand, ask him some questions that he was not eager to answer.
So yeah, definitely similar experience of wanting to get to Scale, but also like I talked about before, it had done so much for me personally, growth wise. And I was at the time at Auction, I'd moved up to principal engineer. And so my job was a little more, I was doing a lot more R&D stuff and kind of like flying up to San Francisco all the time and talking to people. So I was just kind of in this mode of like, how do I get back kind of in the grind, right? Like, how can I
contributor again? How can I
do
build
something?
Stuff?
Yeah. Like where I can just look and say, hey, this thing was done.
Mm-hmm.
And also because Scale meant so much, like, what can I even do? So I didn't really think I had much to offer. So I just signed up on the general volunteer thing.
Mm.
And so the first year that Scale was at Pasadena, I got hit up. So, hey, can you come help us with this Install Fest? And it was pretty much, my shift was Sunday from 8 a.m. to noon. And it was part of a training they were doing to teach people Linux. And the first half of the class was, bring a laptop and we'll install Linux. So they just said, hey, can you just walk around and if people are struggling, help them partition their drive or answer questions or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Set up a RAID array.
Sorry,
go ahead.
No, not even
kidding.
Close.
Sorry, go ahead.
Or like dual boot, right? Like I even, hey, I can help you, shrink that Windows partition, rewrite your bootloader
to 0.
Yeah.
Sorry,
ideally,
I keep throwing jokes in here and interrupting your story.
Windows is if they want to use it, that's fine. And you're not interrupting.
No judges, no judges. That's what I say.
I personally don't use it, but that's okay. Yeah, so I got through the Install Fest. It was a great, thing. I chatted with people, but that was pretty much it. It was a one and
Mm-hmm.
done.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got an email, and I know Rob got this similar one, but it was, I don't know, 2 months before the next scale, the 2017 scale. Just, hey, you want to help on the tech team or whatever? And if you do, just respond, yeah, I'd love to. I don't know what, but
Right.
they said something about like you have a networking and system administration background. Would you like to help us?
Right.
I have no idea, no context for what had actually happened in the background, which is a whole nother thing. So I joined the list, the tech team list, and I sent out an introduction, or they invited me to the tech team list. I sent out an introduction. Hey, I'm Kyle, whatever. And the only response I got was, hey, you look like a Chef user, with a link to the Chef repo on the Scale Chef repo. And I was like, cool. I don't know what's about to happen, but this looks fun. And so I got on these calls.
Yeah.
And people were talking about like wireless and setting up this and that. And it kind of sounded like people knew what they were doing. And Rob and I have talked a lot about this. I think both of us kind of came to the same conclusion. Okay, we're going to show up, be a fly on the wall, learn
Right.
what's going on.
Help
and
out
figure it
where we can. Right. Exactly right.
So we get there. I get there. I had never met Rob before in my life, by the way. But that's the day I met him. I'm there, I'm expecting like this is a well-run operation. This has been a great show for years. And it's like, all right, look, the entire network team quit. This is an all new team. And also, like we've never been in this building before, kind of, or no, they've done one in this building before. That's right. But it's like the guy running the thing, it's his first time even being at a scale.
Wow.
The only people that had contacts were kind of like some of the old timers that weren't actually on the tech team. It was like, okay, you got to get this whole thing set up. And
Rob described it like you showed up and there was like a box of shit and they were like, here's your stuff. Can you set this up? We don't even know what's in the box. Hopefully it's got what you need. That's how he described it.
That was very much it. And it was tumultuous. As a principal engineer at work, it fascinated me from the standpoint of just like leadership, right? Like especially leading without authority.
Leading
Which
from
in
behind.
a volunteer organization, it's like the critical skill, like convincing anyone to do anything when you're not paying them and they don't need to be there.
Right.
And the outcome doesn't necessarily affect them.
Right.
Like,
I mean, I've seen in volunteer orgs, a lot of times it's like 40% of the people have a lot of ideas about what should be done. And there's 20% of people who are furiously doing things.
It's, I will say between scouts, soccer volunteering, scale, there's definitely an 80-20. Mm-hmm. It's if you've heard of the 80-20 split, but 20% of the people are doing 80% of the work.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And the fun part about scale is the 80% that aren't necessarily contributing have all the ideas. And that's why sometimes, you'll see one of the most frustrated responses you can get from me at scale is, well, pull requests are welcome.
I think I heard you say stuff like that.
So like,
wait a minute. So you showed up. They gave you this box of networking junk. You guys like sweat it out. You get it stood up.
Yeah.
And then you come back the next year? Like, what's that about?
So getting it stood up would have been fun. So I think Rob was working on APs. And really at that point, we had no relationship, didn't really know each other. All I knew was they said, hey, you've seen the sign server before. Mm-hmm. And we got to talking, oh yeah, I work at a place where we run PHP apps. They're like, cool, this sign server is written in PHP. Here's a box of Raspberry Pis. You need to make the signs. You've seen the signs.
Right.
Like, that's what you need to work on.
Big TV screens. They show what's happening at the conference. Conference goers, attendees use that to say, in this room is the keynote I want to go to. Or, in the other building is the talk I want to go see. It's hugely vital to what's happening at the conference.
The thing was written in PHP 5.3. They gave me a PC, said run it on this thing, and then, make all these pies work. And it was just like, what? Okay. So it was exciting. I'd never played with a Raspberry Pi before in my life. I'd heard of them. Mm-hmm. I really didn't know what it was like, what working meant. I just knew if I could get the schedule up on the screen, like I was on the right track. I'd seen it before going through Scale, and it was awesome. It had this feel of like Scale's a ragtag show, this sign server. So yeah, I focused on that. I I think I blew up the Git repo. It really exposed a lot of things that I was like, hey, I need to really get good at some things. And Git was one of them.
Oh,
I didn't
really?
actually blow up the Git repo, but somebody else pushed up a bad commit because we were just writing a master because why not, right? Which is kind of the mentality. I don't know. And so I actually watched Alon, who runs all of Scale.
Right. He's one of the founders of Scale.
Exactly. I watched him do a Git bisect, and I was like, okay, wow. One of the few legitimate times I've seen that used. And, everyone asks you that one on a tech interview. And my question to them is, well, when have you actually done that? Right.
I can tell you that, Kyle. I've done it twice. I can't remember the exact. I've done it twice. But
cool.
Yeah, almost always it's like browse GitHub, blame, moving on.
I mean, the network was in a usable state. I think we had, 2 or 3 outages that year, one from an STP loop. Just
signs worked. You got signs working.
No,
People could
no.
Signs didn't work. Couldn't get it working.
They would work and then they would crash because the network would go down. And
okay, all right. So it's pretty scrappy at that time.
It was scrappy, and it's become a fish story. I asked people that were there because it was also Steven's first year. He only came because
your cousin Steven, who runs all the he runs the team that runs all the networking. They set up the equipment. They plug the wires in.
Yeah. And the only reason he was there was because he was coming into town. And he lived here, but then he moved out to Vegas. So when he was living here, we would go to Scale together. And he was running with a completely different crew at Scale. He had a totally different experience because he just hung out, met all the game night people, and he was already kind of volunteering with the game night people. Mm-hmm. And so he was coming into town, and I said, hey, they gave me this room. It has a second bed if you want to crash. And so he came by and he goes, well, I'll just go with you and see what happens. So, of course, they put him to work, too. Mm-hmm. So that was kind of how he got involved in the tech team but you hear this fish story of because I asked people, I go, how many sleepless nights, how many nights did we skip sleeping that first Scale? And I've heard it as high as 3. Now, my memory was that it was 1. And the others were 2 to 4 hours.
Oh, okay.
And so I don't know,
I still don't get it. Why come back?
So that's exactly what I was getting to. I had a coworker once at Auction, and he thinks that the shared battle, the shared trauma, sysadmins going through. And I think we all kind of got bonded that year. A few of us that lived through that year. It was a very unique experience. And at times through the week, I just go, what are we doing? Mm-hmm. You don't even have to be here. But there's a mission. Let's do it. Let's keep going. And I think those of us that kind of stuck it out and forged the bond, by the end of the week, that's where Rob really started. This thing needs to be in a repo, and there needs to be responsible software engineering behind it. We need to treat this like it's a cloud. And that's really Scale is a physical cloud that we spin up for 4 days. And it's a logistics nightmare in that we have to build this huge network that just gets torn down at the end. I mean, Sunday afternoon's always bittersweet because it's dude, it took us 3 days to build this network, and you guys just tore it down in 3 hours. And if you think about it, instantiating a cloud environment for Black Friday, it's very similar mindset. So Rob's the one that kind of instilled that and said, we need to start this repo and we need to do all this stuff.
Yeah. So you've now been volunteering for 10 years. And I showed up, I helped out a little bit. I fixed a GitHub Actions workflow for Rob.
Great.
I did a couple things, and I felt the whole time, I'm not doing very much here. I could contribute a lot more. I don't know how yet.
I have kind of a meta question about sysadmins in general, based on a few experiences I've had over the years, which is, do you think this willingness to stay up all night to get things to work is something that's innate in people who are good at sysadmin stuff, or is it something that you sort of develop over the years of doing the work?
That's a great question. I think it's innate. I think it might be an obsession, a piece of obsession, right? Because also I think a lot of the personality type, if you look at them as a whole, they treat other parts of their life obsessively as well, right? I'll give you an example. a lot of people on the scale tech team are either obsessed with ham, or they're scuba divers, or they're pilots. This isn't something I came to on my own, but I had a VP I worked for, and I said, "What's the most important thing you ask for when interviewing for an operations role, sysadmin role?" And he said, "I try to suss out whether or not they have another activity in their life not related to their work that requires the same level of technical, like deep dive, self-imposed study and rigor." And I was
Wow.
like, okay. So that's kind of what's formed my opinion around it. So I really do think
Wow.
that's innate, because if they weren't staying up all night playing on their computer, they're going to build a train set, or, they're going to rebuild an engine in their garage at night, or I don't know, just something's going to drive them to do it only for
Hmm.
themselves.
Hmm.
And I think that's the thing about the scale group. Why do you keep coming back? Because it's a group of people that we've decided this needs to happen.
What I saw at Scale is that you have a couple projects that, in addition to network, in addition to making sure servers and switches and everything's running, you also kind of own a couple of projects. You have this one that you created called Vazgate, which you mentioned a few times. And it's like, is the network healthy? Are our systems healthy? And that was pretty cool. And people came to like really rely on that. They would look at the screen that showed the output, the display from that thing, and they'd be like, okay, good, we're cool. Or something would turn around and they'd be like, go fix that thing. And then I also saw you became the owner of that PHP Signs app, and you turned it into something else. Can we talk about those two projects a little bit?
So what happened over the years was we didn't have a lot of visibility in monitoring, right? I think you saw this year where it was really good. And
Grafana
Blackbox
Stack,
is,
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
and Vosgate, yeah, both together.
Um,
Nice
well,
collaboration going on.
so Vazget, it was so Rob's first year last year in charge. He said, "I'm sick of showing up and not having monitoring at the beginning, and I don't want to wait for the monitoring stack to come up. I don't want servers to have to be up or whatever." So he's like, "I need the most dirt simple, just are things up or down?"
Mm.
And we had switch pinger in the repo, which is Perl script that Owen wrote that kind of just goes through the switch hierarchy. That's why
Hmm.
we have the concept of hierarchies in the switch inventory. Basically, he's the main stakeholder the first year, right? And so it was okay. It's going to be a Go binary, because whatever interface I build for it, I can embed.
So you can
And
put
by
it
the way,
anywhere.
you could put it anywhere. So if you want to run a copy of this on your workstation, whatever, that's perfect. And it's going to consume the same inventory that builds the scale network. And, you know, I just want a simple dashboard with red and green. And, it cracks me up. We're talking about software I wrote, because sysadmin, like these, I can't believe people actually use this stuff.
You're
Um,
in the club. It
and,
doesn't. There's no. We're not closing the door on you. You're doing a rad work. People are relying on
but
your stuff. You're shipping it. That's all that matters.
yeah. So Basket's very much a look at the end result, don't look at the code,
Mm-hmm.
because I think even the ping monitor still shells out to Unix tools ping.
Mm.
I haven't rewritten the. Anyways, so the web interface needs to be a very simple red green.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a list of stuff, and it's red and green.
It's a
And so the
giant
first,
grid. Every switch, every access point,
so
every server, everything is up there, right? The whole
no,
inventory.
the grid didn't exist yet, though.
Oh, okay.
So
All
this
right.
was
That's what
just an
I saw a grid.
HTML table. No. The first FASCAT at
Oh.
the beginning of last year, its coming out party basically
Mm-hmm.
was it just had an HTML table with rows that span the entire screen, and you had to scroll up and down to look at the whole list.
And you had to
No way to
refresh it?
filter. It would refresh every 15 seconds, just
Oh, okay.
using like a JavaScript timer
JavaScript.
that just did a
Got it.
full page reload.
Set time.
And you'd
Yeah,
lose
okay.
your scroll spot. And I spent hours trying to figure out how to track the scroll
Track
spot.
the scroll.
It was terrible. I mean, it's in my mind still terrible, but I love it. So that existed. So then Steven showed up, and he goes, "Hey, this thing should fit on my tablet." He had this like tablet he was walking around with. Same one he
Mm-hmm.
had this year, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, "I want to see the whole thing on the tablet." So that's where GridView came from. And that was actually written by the guys that run SoCal Nix user group. One of them, David Nguyen, he was sitting in the NUC, and I was like, "Hey, can you just write like what he's asking for, like a flame graph?" So that was just like a different page. And that was for Steven to just walk around and see red green.
Mm-hmm.
And that was pretty much, I still call it WASGET. Sorry.
That's okay.
But that was WASGET the first year. It just ping stuff, like literally ran the ping command, red or green.
For our German listeners, it's Was geht. That's the name of this project. What's up?
So and really the thing it fits, right? So Black Glasses Erik, who did all the Grafana stuff, like really brought it to the next level.
The other Erik.
The other Erik.
Yeah, right.
Which is funny because he
I
doesn't
also
wear
have
black glasses anymore. But
yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that's
but
not me.
You got Black Glasses Erik and Podcaster Erik. So what ended up happening was, so he jokes that he's built a Formula, an F1 race car. And early in the week, he was like, you could tell he was kind of getting upset. Like, I built this F1 race car, and everyone's looking at your like dune buggy.
Vosgate. Yeah, it's like this thing that just
and
does
I told
the
him,
dumbest possible ping, but it's reliable, right?
It's the
basic software.
Thing. Well, and I told him we're on a dirt track, right? So,
well, I mean, I was in that room looking at Grafana and like, I could add some panels to this. I'm talking to people in the room, and it's like a bunch of them, I think, had never really seen Grafana before. That was the sense I got. They weren't quite sure what it was doing or what they were seeing.
And they will get there. Like all that stuff's valuable, but the place that it fits is, and that's why I call it's my love letter to 90s monitoring, right? Because nowadays monitoring is I can put an agent on a thing, and or there's a cloud API,
right?
There's some magic place that has
shipping everything to that spot. Yeah,
like the system can tell me if it's okay or not. It has metrics. It's emitting all this stuff, right? Grafana is the right solution for the time period that we're in, right?
But
Prometheus, Datadog, all this stuff.
There were moments in Scale where the Grafana stack wasn't quite working because, maybe the resource wasn't there. The shipper was getting rate limited or whatever. And at that time, you need the tool that says, this thing's down, everything else is healthy.
And yeah, but that stuff will get there, right? Like you're assuming enough proper architecture time. But in the 90s, late 90s, early 2000s, our monitoring tools were like, there's 6 different vendors of stuff out there. There's like hospital. Okay, we've got 4 different Unix releases, and we don't have admin on these things. And we've got these switches, and they have different versions of SNMP and all this. The only true way to tell is tools like, Nagios. You had Cacti that came along later. We had MRTG. When I worked at that startup, I was working with these guys that came from the Navy, and they had a tool called What's Up. So we had a subscription for a tool called What's Up Gold. And my job in the NOC as a junior system administrator coming up with these network engineers, they're just like, monitor all this stuff. And that's where I really learned a lot about networking was What's Up had this panel where I could start kind of building trees and different views of like the network and learning to monitor. But you had to monitor everything from the outside, right? So WAS gets very much in the vein of, well, no, I'm here. What's my view of your health? Despite whatever you have.
Yeah,
so
you might think you're alive and well, but if I can't talk to you, what's the point?
Right? Yeah, like what's the consumer see? And so the first year, all it did was ping. Cool. I spent a lot of time in the weeks coming up to Scale with like, okay, what can I add to really delight people, right? So I have 2 basic stakeholders. I have Rob, who just wants, like, he needs an accurate assessment. Where's everything right now? And I have Steven, who's walking around. So I think you saw kind of my failed attempt at adding filtering was I was envisioning Steven would like search for a specific room he's in. And he did use the search function, but I built in all this unnecessary complexity around like filtering out certain hosts and all that.
We don't talk about our failures on this show, Kyle. Only
we just
get huge success. Okay, but let's talk about the other project you've been working on too, which is a science project. So you started at Scale. They passed you this PHP. You said PHP 5. That sounds old. Off the top of my head, I have no clue. I don't remember. I've never actually had to ship PHP apps aside from WordPress, if that counts. I don't know if that counts. And then you became like the owner of this PHP science thing, and then you rewrote it entirely. And then I saw you do something that was really blew me away. Why don't you tell us about it, and then I'll describe what I saw.
Yeah, so that first year I got the signs. I didn't really know what it did. In the off season, I think between that first year and the second, And part of the reason I came back to Scale was just the redemption arc of like, that was a really bad show. Let's have a really good one. Very similar to this year was we need to come back strong. But I got it set up with Vagrant so I could start kind of running it locally and testing things. Because every year you have to update the sponsor images. They're all like hard coded into the web server.
Wow. Okay.
And there was these maps in PHP. So the track types. All that stuff comes from upstream from a Drupal server.
Oh, like DevOps and like cloud, like that type of track, right?
Cloud
like
native,
Nix, there's a Nix track, there's a PostgreSQL track. Got it. Yeah. So that all comes from Drupal.
So that all comes from Drupal, but you could tell that the person that wrote it, when they were writing the signs, they also had access to Drupal because the original XML endpoint where everything came from had a bunch of HTML embedding in it and spans and like the data
so they would
types
just sort of
clean
slice out what they needed and immediately display that in the PHP.
Which I don't remember which law it is off the top of my head, if it's Conway's or another one, but there's this law that any undocumented interface you have will end up becoming a production part of the system. Mm-hmm. So there's 3 different groups that were using that endpoint and then just cleaning it up rather than just. So this year, fortunately, they did the Drupal update. I got to work with the developer and say, this is the exact data structure I want.
Yeah.
And now it's super clean.
But now this year you like completely rewrote this thing in Go.
So when I first got it, I don't think I could program anything that would look good. And so just kind of my journey of getting better at programming things was kind of, as maintaining the sign server, I always thought, hey, we could do a lot with this. There's so much room for activities here. But like, it's just hard. It's what I call the Da Vinci Code. You open one of those PHP files and it's got HTML, JavaScript, and PHP all inlining each other and just in these weird blocks. And,
who wrote that? You call them up angry? So, this code sucks.
Not at all.
I'm kidding. I don't think you did that. No.
I kind of love the signs. But it became mine because no one else wanted it. Mm-hmm. And I started to take a lot of value in, like, hey, they're working. That was the thing I was assigned on day one. Mm-hmm. And I own it. And anyone else that's come and tried to help with it, I want to take in the help, but it's just never been taken over. And so the reason I rewrote it is for years I've thought, okay, it's kind of if you build it, they'll come. Because I talk to people, lots of people come by the knock through the years. They do these drive-by things. Oh yeah, I want to help. I'm going to come. I'll help you rewrite this thing. I know some this, that, the other. Say, okay, we'll put together just like a framework of a front end of what you want to see. And then, let's make it a real thing. And nothing ever came. Mm-hmm. So the initial, I'm going to rebuild it. And I just want to build something that people can then say, okay, there's something, and start working on.
Contributing to. Yeah. You don't necessarily want to be the owner of this forever.
Yeah. So initially I tried with like a library called P5JS for the front end. And so the final, it's gone through like iterations in my own computer that have never seen GitHub. That's just like different experiments of what could this thing look like. And so I didn't really expect to run it this year. I wanted to run it on a couple monitors and see if people liked it, get some feedback. Mm-hmm. And
but then all of it sounds good.
Right. So really last year after Scale, I think I spent 2 weeks because we had some MRTG problems. So I spent 2 weeks like working on monitoring on my personal network. Mm-hmm. And then I gave myself a deadline of, okay, well, April 30th, I need to have a working prototype that makes a hallway view. And then I'll kind of just code freeze because then I have to take a few months off Scale stuff and I'll see if I want to get back to it. But really it needs to be in a state where I can at least put it up on a few monitors.
Mm-hmm. And you said you just ran this at your house all the time on a screen, like just previous Scale, like the signs, and go to this talk, go see PostgreSQL talk and 102, and it's at your house running.
It's running just to
right
make
now. Sure. It's running at your house right now.
Yeah, I just ran it off the demo server.
So if you go to Kyle's house, you'll see Scale calendar, Scale schedule running on the screen. Do you have visitors come over like, what is this? What are you doing? No.
My friends and family don't care.
So this year you weren't intending to run your version. You were just going to run it on a couple, but it didn't really work out that way, did it? What happened?
They upgraded Drupal.
Oh, okay.
And
that sounds good. That's a good thing.
I think so. In the grand scheme. For me, it was very much, Well, I was done with that in April, and now it's broken. The PHP one's broken too.
Oh, and that's
But
an
what?
old, crusty app with a lot of gnarly stuff in it.
Well, and it wanted that XML endpoint with all the baked-in formatting and all that. Nobody knew. So obviously they didn't port that into the new instance
Mm-hmm.
because it's a new instance of Drupal. It's not just like every year they kind of pull it forward and they upgraded
Okay.
the existing instance. They also, I
Okay.
think, changed instances.
Got it. Okay.
Luckily, the people working on it, they were pretty open to like, I want exactly this endpoint. And I, let them know, hey, there's these other consumers, and they knew Alon kind of had he knew what he was doing, kind of project managing it, and
Yeah.
so
But
everybody that consumed it. Yeah.
did you still want XML?
Nope.
No XML. Okay. All right. All right. So you got some JSON, then you're good to go. Your science project. So they upgraded Drupal. Old app's broken. That means gotta go, Kyle. Gotta deploy your thing. I hope it works. Fingers crossed.
Well, so you also know we did the new routers this year, right? The NixOS routers.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not joking when I say Rob put in 200 to 300 hours building that and making sure that all this stuff went off without a hitch and coordinating the rest of us.
Mm-hmm.
And so I talked to Rob and I said, look, I only have so much time. And I really like, I have to get FASGet, like I have to add some of these things. Just I have to. Like it's something I have to do. I've already got to fix the signs to work with the new Drupal, no problem. But then, I need to help you with the network stuff and whatever comes up. I don't think I'm going to try to figure out how to make this work with the PHP site.
Right. I'm gonna let that thing go. Sorry, it's just too much work.
I go, but that means we're running mine. And of course, Rob, yeah, cool. I'm
Yeah.
confident. I'm like,
Yeah.
but I wrote it. I'm not.
So this is part of your identity thing. Like you don't see yourself as a software developer. You don't feel like I'm just going to build and ship this and we'll see how it goes. Is that what that is?
Yeah, or like, what if people don't like the design choices? Because I did make changes, right?
Okay. All right. All right. Yeah. Yeah.
Or just what if it crashes? I mean, I've been running it nonstop, so I changed the architecture, right? So it used to hit the server once every minute. So the server itself was something we ran in the NOC that would pull from Drupal every 5 minutes, and then that was the PHP server. That's what made the schedule, and that's where it was all rendered. And then the pies would just kind of hit the site and get the rendered version. Well, anytime there was a blip in the network, all the pies would just look terrible. They'd look terrible. Mm-hmm. And so people would have to go around and reboot them because they didn't really have recovery and all this kind of stuff. So I changed the architecture where initially I wrote the Go API to do that conversion from XML to a clean JSON. And then I realized, hey, I could just run this on every pie.
Right.
And then you don't need a server.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah.
And
they could just have whatever the most recent pull was. It's fine. They got the data. If they didn't,
exactly.
If there's a blip, it's like they'll just use what they had before. Yeah.
Well, and then also if the network goes down, because again, Rob and I are working on these routers, with other people, but historically the scale network hasn't always been stable. So I'm going to account for that at every layer. So also now that schedule's cached. So if a sign can't hit Drupal, that's fine. It still has a schedule in memory, right? The front end was the biggest thing. I'm not a front end developer. I don't know how to build one. So learning enough React to actually build up those components and then putting it on top of that API was that was the stretch goal last year.
I mean, that's right. The signs looked great this year, Kyle, but I didn't even think anything about it. I just walked around. We looked at the signs. I thought these are freaking great. I know this is Kyle's Signs app. It's beautiful. I have I'm not, when you use a tool that's well made, you're not thinking to yourself, I'm using a tool. This is my Heidegger thing, but you just use the tool, right? And that's an effective tool. That's a useful piece of software. I'm not thinking about it as software. I'm not thinking who wrote this? Why does it look this way? I'm looking at the sign going, okay, I need to go to room 103. That is 100% what you're trying to build, when you're delivering software, right? But you did something that I was really struck by. It was like, I found it really meaningful. And it stayed with me at the conference. And so even like the second to last day, I think it was Saturday, I was sitting behind you in the NOC. I was just watching you do weird Git stuff. Weird to me. Like, why is he doing that? Because you had your Signs app was a separate repo on your own private GitHub. There's the original Scales Signs app, which is part of the Scale network. And you were like doing a whole bunch of like Git. You were merging the two code bases together and you're doing like this history rewriting stuff. And I was like, why in the world is he going through so much effort to curate a Git log for this combined code base. You've got the old code base, you throw it away, you've got the new code base, that's the new code. That's just how it works in my world. Throw the old thing away, deploy the new thing. Who cares about the old thing? And you like spent time building it up together. And I was like, I didn't even know why you were doing this. You eventually went to GitHub, you looked at the contributor graph, and you're like, okay, that's what I wanted to see. And the original science author was there, credited in the code base, even though you're like archiving that whole app. Your whole goal, as far as I understood it, was we need to give that person credit. They did all this work. And yeah, we're running mine now, but this is a collaborative thing. You were attributing to them. You weren't losing their contributions. You were preserving it in history. And I found that super, like, it would never have occurred to me. Like, wow, what an asshole I am. That would have never occurred to me to do. I just was really struck by that. Did I get the story right? I mean, is that why you did it?
The original author was one of the 3 people that started Scale, as far as I understand. It was and if I get this wrong, they can yell at me, but I'm pretty sure it was Bala, Alon, and then this third guy, Gareth, and he's the one that made the signs. And I don't know what happened, but that first year we were there, it was because of some falling out.
Mm-hmm. So one of those guys left.
Yeah, and that was kind of the tech team was kind of the split, right? And that's just stuff I'm not interested in.
Sure, yeah, we don't.
But well, and it's whatever. Like the show goes on, that's people stuff. But really, the science code base has meant a lot to me. Like what he created, it was very much the front line of the experience to the first Scale I went to was looking at that thing, and then taking it on and really kind of seeing the love and effort that he put into it. You know, like you were talking about, why do you do Scale and kind of this obsession of people, but like this was something he spent a lot of his time on just for the experience of the end users. And so my science is a continuation of it. I actually tried to start writing it in the Scale network repo, the Scale signs repo, but I ended up splitting it off and creating Go signs in my own. But the intent was always that this is the same project. Because we had 2 different, unrelated Git histories at that point. I kind of had to merge them. But yeah, that's exactly the experience I was going for. If someone goes and looks at the Scale signs repo now, because Rob and I worked about a week ago I was like, hey, just, give me admin on this thing and I'm temporarily going to write to master, and gave him the whole plan. But I overrode master with the new history that shows the entire old one, the entire new one. I changed the attribution and I archived mine. And that's 2 things I wanted to see. Was one, I want that graph to continue because it's his idea. And there's a lot of brilliant stuff in there, like time travel, that I blatantly took. And even though the style of it's different, it's a natural progression of that. And the second was I wanted this to be a Scale project.
Yeah.
So we did have
It just surprised me because it's like, who looks at Git history and contribution graphs and things like that? Like I look at that a little bit to see, like, who do I bother if I don't know what's going on with this thing, if it's broken or whatever. But yeah, the audience for that might be small, but it was like there was so much care that had to be, there was so much humanity involved in the decision to preserve this person's contribution, to give them attribution. It really struck me.
Well, there's a lot of people have gone in. So if you look at it, there's, I don't know, 13 contributors or something. I didn't want it to all of a sudden be me. And I think my version had 4 or 3 and one's Dependabot. Yeah, no, that's not the scale of, that's not the story of Scale Signs, right? Like Scale Signs started well before me and my code. And none of that might be running anymore, but this is definitely someone else's system that we're running with.
That's a cool story. Can you, maybe you could just sum it up for us then? I mean, what does Scale mean to you overall? Do you have a way of kind of putting it, when people go, why do you, like your family, why do you spend months working on this thing? You spend weeks leading up to it, stressing out about it. You spend a week there, maybe not even sleeping that much. Why do you do this? What does it mean to you?
My family does not ask these questions. They
okay.
But yeah, no, to anyone from the outside, it looks kind of crazy. It's the tribe, right? Like that's my tribe. I don't know. I met these people and they're like family. Rob takes over the team and it's okay. What do you need to succeed? David gets an idea. We need to allocate wireless channels over, DHCP. Okay, what do I need to do? I don't know. I don't really question that. It's very disruptive. It's a lot of sleepless nights. It does take a lot of personal time. And every year I do go through there's kind of two pieces, should I go back? And the one is, it is very disruptive, right? It does take a lot of time, and this year especially, between my two software projects and the routers, really, and just making sure we came back strong. So there's that piece. And then the second piece is, am I in someone else's chair, right? Like, that chair was open the day I showed up. And so, my life, my career has progressed a decade of working at scale. And so is it time for that opportunity to be there for someone else, right? And so that's why I say, kind of, we're talking about scale here, but officially, as of the team offboarding on Monday, it's like, okay, well, I'm like, don't talk to me about scale till June. Of course. And then Rob and I talked about it for an hour and a half the other day, but you know what I mean? It's
and
time
you listen to our podcast episode about it. You were there, you lived it, and then you listened to us talk about it too.
I love it. It's the reason that we volunteer on the network, that I personally volunteer on the network every year, is because I understand that those tickets won't be as affordable if we don't. So if they just pay the convention center to do that, to do all the special work that we have to do to make sure the AV VLANs work, and to get the density of wireless that's needed for guests to have a good experience, and for stuff like the signs and all this weird work we have to do for the registration stations, just no vendor's going to do that in a cost-effective manner, and the price of the tickets are going to go up. And as I understand, the margins on the show are very tight all the time. And we're donating a lot of, really high quality time to this that would have to be paid for some other way. And again, I'm not interested in the numbers and all that. And I know, someone else could fill you in, but if the cost hadn't have been what it was when I went, and was double or triple, I might have second guessed going the first time.
Yeah.
And I would have a completely different life. So
the door would be closed to people.
I mean, even as a principal engineer, my job for a while was just to go to conferences. And there's nothing like scale. VMworlds, the Cisco Lives, the Red Hat Summit, all this stuff I've gone to, like, all of them cost thousands of dollars, which usually the vendor comes. But, like, you can't just go and say, hey, I want to better myself if I'm not in the industry, or I'm not in the right part of the industry, like you can with scale. You could get a 50% discount code from pretty much anybody, but even if you can't,
we had one. I thought they weren't giving those out too easily.
No, oh god,
So, I'm kidding.
No, but there's a way to get there.
Yeah,
and it's high quality content. It's still community driven. I mean, we have our sponsors, but they don't really dictate what happens. They're not trying to sell you. I go to these big conferences, and I just get sick of it that I'm watching a product manager explain why I should buy their thing.
Yeah.
I go to scale, and it's some kid like, I rewrote package management in a Ruby library, and then the crowd starts razzing him, and then he just totally shuts them all down with like, well, no, here's how it works. And then nobody knew who this kid was. Now he's 500 stars on GitHub, and he's an important,
You're talking about homebrew? You saw that at scale, homebrew?
No. Specifically FPM. This guy Jordan Sissel. One of the first DevOps days I went to, he had this controversial idea of like, well, I made one package manager to rule them all. It builds devs, it builds, and everyone's like, oh, we've already got Alien, that's garbage. And then people were razzing him in the crowd. And by the end, it was just like, dude, you're the man, Jordan Sissel. And they gave him a standing applause. And it was just this kid with like blue hair. It was great.
So thanks so much, Kyle Risse, for coming on the show. It was great talking to you. Honestly, I hope we get a chance to hang out and work together in the future. But it was really, really a pleasure having you on.
Yeah, thanks a lot. And I think we're hanging out next week at B-Side San Diego, right?
I'm going to go to B-Side San Diego. Yeah, you were going to go. I asked my son if he wanted to go. He said no, so you're stuck with me.
Cool. I'll be there.
B-Side San Diego. All right. So this has been Picture Me Coding with Erik Aker and Mike Moll. Thanks so much. We'll see you again in a couple weeks.
See you next time.